Good morning and welcome to this very special segment on the third day of January 2022. Well, yes, it is January 2022 and days are going very fast already on to the third day, and today is the New Year's Day holiday. So on this very historic day, once again, let's take a look at what's making news, the headlines.
Wales has passed a grim pandemic milestone with more than 1,000 people in hospital with COVID. There were at least 1,066 people in hospitals across the state yesterday. That's a 15% increase on the day before. Australia's most populous state has also chalked up another unwanted high, with 1 in 5 people fronting for PCR tests returning a positive result. Further south, Victorian authorities are worried that low testing numbers and New Year's celebrations could lead to a significant spike in the coming days. The federal government is hailing new data from the tax office, which shows a big jump in jobs figures as proof the economy is rebounding. Estimates show there were around 485,000 extra jobs by the end of November, as compared to September, when New South Wales, Victoria and the ACT were all in lockdown.
The unemployment rate today is around a 13-year low at 4.6%, and job ads are around a 13-year high, with more than 250,000 job ads available.
In a blow for holiday makers, the majority of beaches on the Gold and Sunshine coasts will remain closed today. A combination of rough seas caused by ex-tropical cyclone Seth and king tides have led to hazardous conditions for swimmers. There's also been some isolated flooding inland.
So they were up to date with the news headline. Well, of course, while we look at the numbers of the cases, Australia COVID update, positive test rate in New South Wales hits 20% high as Omicron cases surge, and hospitalizations climb to more than 1,000 in New South Wales for the first time since Omicron variant emerged. As a number of PCR tests drops, the positivity rate for COVID-19 cases in New South Wales has a hit of 20% as the new number of people in hospital with the virus passed 1,000 for the first time since the highly contagious Omicron variant arrived. On Sunday, yesterday, there were 1,066 people in hospital with COVID-19, an 18% increase a day after the number had already doubled between Boxing Day and New Year's Eve. The positivity rate also reached 20.3 on Sunday, meaning 1 in 5 people tested had COVID, well above the 5% of the World Health Organization deemed an acceptable rate on infection at the beginning of the pandemic. The state recorded 18,278 new cases of COVID-19 on Sunday, a drop in the previous 2 days following a significant fall in the number of tests conducted. New South Wales Health said that 90,019 people had been tested in the previous 24 hours, down from 119,278 in the previous reporting period. The fall in testing follows frequent urging of the government for people not to line up for PCR test unless they have symptoms or have been deemed to be a close contact. The government has also changed its definition of a close contact in line with changes agreed to by National Cabinet last week. So testing capacity in New South Wales is currently under enormous pressure, and the only people getting a PCR test, nose and throat swab, should be those who have COVID-19 symptoms. Live in a household with a confirmed COVID-19 positive case, or have otherwise been advised by New South Wales to get a test. The Health Department said in a statement on Sunday that interstate travellers and international arrivals are not required to have a PCR test and should instead take rapid antigen test, as per the guidelines for the respective states and territories. And we know there are problems getting their hands onto those testing kits. So COVID rates continue to rise across the country with 7,172 cases in Victoria and 3 virus-related deaths, while Queensland reported 3,587 cases. Extreme heat caused the closure of 8 of Victoria's testing sites on Saturday, blowing out queues and the test result wait times. Early Childhood Minister Ingrid Slitt said the state's health ministers would make an announcement on the widening access to rapid antigen tests within days. We will have more to say on the next few days about how we will distribute the rapid antigen test for those who are eligible to use that as a way of ensuring they remain COVID safe, she said. While here in Queensland, Queensland's Chief Health Officer Dr. Jared said on Sunday that of the state's current cases, there are 112 hospitalizations. In South Australia, Premier Stephen Marshall announced 82 people were in hospital after the state recorded 2,298 new COVID cases from 21,140 tests performed yesterday. Marshall also said that the state had dodged the bullet with a very vulnerable community after an outbreak in Port Augusta, where roughly 1 in 5 people are Indigenous, appeared to be less serious than previously thought. Tasmania has recorded 404 new cases with 3 people in hospital and a positivity rate of 26% from 1,542 tests performed. The high rate comes after changes to testing requirements that ask only those with symptoms to get tested. But while cases in Australia continue to reach record levels, there is growing evidence Omicron may lead to milder symptoms. A study from London's Imperial College found the risk of being admitted to hospital is up to 70% less for people with Omicron compared to those infected with Delta. Of the 112 people in Queensland who are in hospital, only 5 were being treated in intensive care. So they were up to date, and as we know that this one is slightly different. But the issue we are facing is one, of course, that with the degree of contagiousness of this virus, we are going to see a very large number of cases, even though the severity of the clearly going to be less, as we have mentioned before. We are going to see a very large number of cases and a small proportion of very large numbers. Well, it is still quite large, Jared said. The speed of infections with Omicron across the globe is causing concern for the World Health Organization, who warned that even a milder variant would lead to health systems becoming overwhelmed. Last week, World Health Organization's Europe COVID Incident Manager, Catherine Smallwood, warned that a rapid growth of Omicron, even if combined with a slightly milder disease, will still result in a large number of hospitalizations, particularly amongst unvaccinated groups, and cause widespread disruption to health systems and other critical services. In New South Wales, there is increasing evidence the state's health system is wavering under the rate of infections. So there we are, those numbers and those circumstances just does not change, and it just keeps going. Well, right now, let's look at a national map and find out about the number of cases.
Pressure is continuing to build on the New South Wales health system as the number of people in hospital with coronavirus surpasses 1,000. In Victoria, case numbers are down, but so are testing numbers, with authorities concerned infections could set to explode. Let's take a look at the situation across the country. New South Wales recorded more than 18,000 new infections and 2 deaths today, a slight decrease from yesterday's 22,500 cases. However, the state state has seen a significant spike in hospitalisation figures from about 900 to just over 1,000. There are 5 times as many people being treated for COVID in the state's hospital as there were in mid-December, with the positivity rate now at 1 in 5 people. In Victoria, the state recorded over 7,100 new cases and 3 deaths, with community testing results revealing Omicron is now the dominant variant in the state. Hospitalisations have risen in the past day from 451 to 472, which includes 52 patients in intensive care and 22 on a ventilator. Today marks the first decrease in daily case numbers since Christmas, but testing figures have dropped sharply over the New Year period. Queensland has recorded more than 3,500 new infections in the latest reporting period. 5 people are currently being treated in intensive care. Wearing a mask is now required in all indoor settings in Queensland, except the family home, in an effort to slow the escalating spread of coronavirus. Authorities are warning a spike in cases is expected over the next few days after the holiday period.
The issue we are facing, though, of course, is that with the degree of contagiousness of this virus, we're going to be seeing very large numbers of cases. Even though the severity is clearly going to be less, we are going to see very large numbers of cases, and a small proportion of a very large number is still a large number. It won't be a surprise at all if in the next couple of days we see a significant increase in cases as more samples are tested and more people come forward. So that won't be a surprise in the next few days if we see a significant rise in cases.
82 people in South Australia are now in hospital with COVID-19. 7 of those are in intensive care. A record 2,298 cases have been recorded, up slightly from yesterday's 2,108. Premier Stephen Marshall says the hospitalisations are well within the limits of the state's healthcare system.
We now have this new wave, Omicron, which is highly transmissible, much lower level severity, but we had to take action on the 26th to make sure that we could slow the spread of this disease down so it wouldn't overwhelm our health system in Australia, more particularly here in South Australia. This gives us more time to flex up our capacity with regards to hospital beds, ICU, getting all of the personnel in place, and also giving us that greater opportunity to get as many vaccines into the arms of South Australians. That's going to be the very best level of protection that we can possibly get at the moment.
Meanwhile, the ACT has recorded just over 500 new cases of COVID-19, its highest daily tally since the beginning of the pandemic. 9 people are in hospital as a result of the virus, with 1 person in ICU requiring ventilation. And Tasmania has recorded just over 400 new infections, bringing the total number of active cases in the state to more than 1,200. There are currently 2 people with COVID in hospital, with no one in intensive care. And let's take a closer look at the situation in New South Wales. Here's reporter Alison Shao from Sydney.
The number of people in hospital with COVID-19 has reached 1,000 people since for the first time since October the 2nd. Now, yesterday there were 901 patients in hospital, so today there are 1,066, so it's up by more than 150 patients, and of those patients, 83 are in intensive care being treated. Now, the state recorded 18,000 cases today, which is a slight drop from yesterday's 22,000, and that was out of about 90,000 tests, meaning the test positivity rate is now 1 in 5 in terms of the number of people testing positive after getting their swabs. So New South Wales also recorded 2 more deaths in the 24 hours to 8 p.m. yesterday, and the number of people being treated in hospital has been long regarded as the important number to be watching, and it's now tripled in terms of the number of cases in hospital now compared to 2 weeks ago. So this is quite a dramatic rise in people being treated in hospital in New South Wales. It's a problem that has been being shown in the hospital system as well as in the aged care system, where many people are testing positive or are close contacts of positive cases because of this increased community transmission that we've been seeing. And there are many aged care facilities which are reporting quite significant and severe staffing shortages. We heard earlier from the CEO of Asian Community Services in Australia, Paul Sadler. This is what he had to say.
What we've also seen is a substantial squeeze on aged care providers' workforce because people are having close contacts in the community. We've seen staff who've had to be furloughed, and that has made it really difficult for aged care homes to support the visitation that older people need.
These tired and overworked health workers say that they had no choice but to support the government's new ruling, which means that asymptomatic close contacts can be ordered back to work. So those are nurses and doctors in the New South Wales Health Hospital system, which are now under these new rules, meaning that they can be asked to come back to work if they're not showing any symptoms. And this issue does seem to be growing because there is no sign of slowing in terms of the hospitalisation rate or the number of people testing positive in the community.
And let's get more on the situation in Victoria now. Reporter Leanne Wong is in Melbourne.
Well, another 3 more Victorians have died due to the virus, and the state's recorded another 7,172 new daily infections. Now, that is a drop on yesterday's record number of cases. That's a drop of 270 from 7,442 infections. But that comes off the back of also quite a sharp drop in testing numbers. In fact, testing numbers in the past 24 hours, well, that number is the lowest number we've seen since November. Now, that's partly due to the fact that testing capacity has sort of fallen in the past few days due to it being the holidays, as well as the extreme heat that we've been seeing in Melbourne. So temperatures in the past 2 days reached about 38 degrees, and the health department said they had to close several testing sites due to the fact, particularly the ones that are outdoors in tents, due to the fact that these temperatures put health workers at risk. So health workers are decked out in full PPE, which is why the health department said these sites had to close. And a lot of this testing number drop is also partly attributable to the fact that the changes that we've seen come out of the National Cabinet meeting this week, where we've seen that close contact definition be redefined, and the Victorian government reintroduced that on Friday. Now, off the back of these testing results, we've also seen that results collected over the Christmas period. Well, the health department says that those results show that the Omicron variant now makes up more than 3/4 of the COVID-19 cases in Victoria. That wasn't...
So Omicron makes up 3/4 of that. Many times people were wondering that as soon as a new variant is announced, what happens to the older ones? Like now all you hear about is the Omicron and the number of cases. What about people now? Don't they still get the Delta? And what about the stats on that? Why aren't we seeing the stats on that? Just some food for thought there. Well, moving on. Of course, now it is going to be a balancing act of health risk and nurturing for the old.
Aged care homes are bearing the brunt of the rise in COVID-19 cases.
And while there is still a need for some restrictions on visitors, it's also important to make sure that residents aren't left feeling isolated and lonely. For more, we're joined now by Aged Care and Community Services Chief Paul Sadler. Paul, great to have you on the program this morning. Sadly, there's been a second death in an aged care home in Sydney linked with this latest Omicron outbreak there. What's being done to make sure that residents of aged care homes are kept safe from this latest outbreak?
Yes, good morning, Joanna, and to all your viewers. We're doing the best we can in a situation that is currently very dangerous for aged care. So there are restrictions that are placed on aged care services when there is actually an outbreak, and those are dictated by the public health units in each of the states and territories. What we're seeing at the moment, though, is with the Omicron variant spreading rapidly, the community transmission rates, as we all know, have skyrocketed, and so have the number of outbreaks in aged care. About 3 weeks before Christmas, we had roughly 25 outbreaks in aged care homes across Australia. That quadrupled in the lead up to Christmas. It's probably gone up substantially since then, but there's no data being released publicly to say how many outbreaks there now are across Australia.
How has the latest situation affected the visitors that are able to come into aged care homes?
So we've seen aged care homes aiming wherever possible to allow visitations, particularly over the Christmas New Year period. And in many parts of Australia and for many homes, that has gone on uninterrupted. But as soon as you've had these really high levels of community transmission in some areas, particularly in states like New South Wales, Victoria, but increasingly in South Australia, Queensland, Tasmania as well, we have seen restrictions put on, particularly where there's been an outbreak.
So there has been restrictions put on. Of course, we know that Queensland has these new restrictions as well. Well, let's go to South Australia, where 2,298 cases have been reported.
We are very pleased with the continuing focus on testing in South Australia. The numbers were slightly down on New Year's Day, but still 21,140 tests which were conducted in South Australia. So a big thanks to those people that are coming forward. And we're also pleased to report that we are seeing an increase in the symptomatic testing, which is exactly and precisely what we've been messaging for the last couple of days. We want to preserve those tests for people who are going to have symptoms and more likely to have the disease. We want to get them into isolation as quickly as possible. In terms of the numbers, yesterday we had 2,298 positive cases in South Australia, so around about the same place that we were the day before. Thank you to everybody who came forward. We currently have 82 people in hospital, so we're still very much within our current capacity with our hospitals, and that's before we take action to put that new elective surgery direction in place, which will be coming in certainly in the coming days. Currently we have 7 people in ICU, and there is again a movement in and out both of ICU and in terms of hospital. We see a lot of admissions, but also a lot of people who are leaving hospital on a daily basis after their conditions have stabilised. So grateful thanks to everybody who has been involved in the testing and the hospitalisation of those people whose situation has deteriorated. As you'll be more than aware, the vast majority of people now who are COVID positive in South Australia are being looked after with our community response team, which is managing those people within their own home environment.
So there you go, that report there from South Australia. Well, right now let's hear from the Leader of Opposition, Anthony Albanese.
Faster rail would see a major benefit with travel times from Newcastle to Sydney cut to just 2 hours. And once high-speed rail is up and running, this journey would take only 45 minutes. Imagine being able to jump on the train at 6:30 and be at Sydney Olympic Park for the start of the night's game. It will make the region more connected, giving business opportunities for closer collaboration and integration, as well as an incentive for people looking to relocate to the region. It will bring economic benefits to local industries like tourism and hospitality. And high-speed rail is a game changer for workers commuting to Sydney. Of course, investing in rail infrastructure doesn't stop at the end of the line. The trains that run on the tracks should be made in Australia too.
Well, as he mentioned, that that should be made here in Australia as well, and I do agree on that point. Well, today we're going to be finishing off, the finishing of a story is a good story. Our Safe Lifesavers, if we look at their history and how it has evolved over the years, and when did women, lifesavers get involved? Here's that lively report.
Marching to the swirl of bagpipes are the 15 teams of girl lifesavers who competed in the March past at the Ladies Surf Carnival at North Cronulla Beach. This beach has drawn record attendances during the summer, and it's possible that the bevy of beauty marching in the local colours could be one of the main attractions. The girls have shown vast improvement in marching technique in recent years, and Coldcliff from the south coast is one of the best ladies' teams in the state from whichever angle you look at them. This team is from Culburra, which is way down in the deep south of New South Wales. Their enthusiasm is shared by the masculine spectators who rolled up in large numbers to capture the highlights of the carnival. The crowd was estimated at more than 8,000, which is sure proof that these girls are better draw cards than the husky male lifesavers. For years the girls have been frowned upon by the Surf Association, but by their initiative they have purchased their own equipment and conducted beach displays with great success. Most of the activities are confined to the beach, and all forms of races are held for trophies, which are donated by local businessmen. This is the beach relay event, and the runners show a keenness which is typical of their general attitude. They are determined to succeed, not only because there's a point score for every event, but to prove that the gentle sex can do anything as well as the mere male. They have a spirit of independence, the independence their grandmothers had when they fought for emancipation. In part, the girls have won their struggle with authority, and surf life-saving officials are now allowed to judge their events. The pillow fight is one of the features of every display, and it's probable that some old-fashioned Surf Association members don't mind the girls doing this sort of thing at all. This is the last event of the afternoon's program, and after the final points were worked out, the presentation of the winning trophy was made by Mr. Les Johnson, MHR, to the standard bearer of the Coldcliff team. A winning day for Coldcliff at the Ladies Surf Carnival at Cronulla.
And isn't that wonderful, that sort there from 1959, the good old days, when you could just jump on those logs there and have a good old pillow fight, that didn't worry too much about all the political correctness, the OHS and everything that goes on these days. It was wonderful to see. And it was, the good part there was that even from 1959, ladies, they stood up for their own. They wanted to be out there, be part of the community and do all the things. So good on them. And so such a good report that one there by the Retro Focus team. And I thought that was worthwhile sharing with you all here today. Well, right now, it's time to get the message from our sponsors for this segment. And don't forget that you too and your business too can be a part of this program, and you too can have the naming rights or have your ads played during this show.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
Yes, correct, at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall, but of course you can always jump on the website. There's so many things that are done virtually these days, online application forms, online letter of offer and other things. So all you need to do is jump online, you are in business. Well, right now it's time to say goodbye, but before we do that, let's take a look at functions and events happening right here in Brisbane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you this morning. And just an announcement that our planned Bhandara, which is the function which was going to happen at Vishnu Maya Mandir on the 9th of January, has now been postponed. So in light of the current conditions of and the restrictions placed by Queensland government, in interest of everyone and interest of public health, we've decided to postpone that until further notice. So our Bhandara, which is Usha and Umesh Chandra's Bhandara at Sri Vishnu Maya Mandir on the 9th of January, has now been postponed until further notice, in line with the public health safety notice. So until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me. And don't forget that from next week, we will be resuming most of these specialty shows like the weekly real estate updates and others. This week, we will just have the normal news. And of course, Daily India Report resumes from 10th of January. So there you are, up to date on Australian Indian Radio. It's been wonderful having your company. Michael Sparrow, Vina Kiran all the way from Fiji, and Devika also, and everyone else who's joined it. Hard to name everyone, but thank you so much for joining in with the show. It's wonderful having your company. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me.